rSlashMaliciousCompliance. No phones at work. Fine with me. Apologies for the formatting and length. Found the mobile user and such. A long time ago, after I exited the military, my first job on the other side was working in IT at a managed service provider. For those not in the industry, a managed service provider is a company that you can contract your IT out to that will provide end-user support, infrastructure, networking, etc. Also, these types of companies have a reputation in the industry for being absolutely miserable to work for. Long hours, shit pay, abusive customers, but hey, it's a job and I desperately needed one after moving cross-country with every worldly belonging I had crammed into the back of my truck. Anyways, on to the MC. I had been working for MSP for about a month and they were finally ready for me to work tickets on my own without adult supervision. During orientation, they mentioned a no phones while you're at your desk policy, which I guess is fine, but I'm not a fan of being treated like a child. We got plenty of that in the military. So I'm at my desk at 8 a.m. getting logged into everything and I have my phone on the desk next to me. As boss lady walks past my desk, she sees my phone and immediately stomps over to confront my heinous deed. To cut down on the exposition, just know that boss lady is not technical. She achieved her prestigious role by being literally the first person the company hired like a decade ago and just never left. Anyways, boss lady is livid. She goes on a 5-minute diatribe about how lazy I was and that it was not a good look for me to be slacking so blatantly on my first real day on tickets. What she didn't understand is that I needed my phone to get into most every program we used on a day-by-day basis with 2FA, MFA, the code sent to your mobile device to confirm it's you signing in. So she tells me in no uncertain words that, if I see that phone again, I'll write you up and we can have a chat with VP about why you think you're above the rules. I tried to interject but was met with repeated shushing, like a toddler. Anyways, I'm sure most of you can see where this is going. I sit at my desk browsing Reddit for about 3 hours since I'm quite literally dead in the water and couldn't get any work done if I wanted to. So a few hours later, when boss lady finally notices that I have not closed a single ticket today, she tears ass across the office to loudly berate me in front of the entire team. As this story is already a bit wordy, I'll try my best to transcribe the conversation. Boss. Hey you, Richard Pfister. Why is it that you haven't closed any tickets? Are you trying to piss me off today? I'm going to write you up and then we're going to VP's office to have a nice chat, me. But I can't log in. I haven't been able to all morning. Boss. What? Why? Why would you not bring this up to me? Me. I tried, but you kept shushing me when I was trying to tell you I needed my phone for MFA and you explicitly said I'm not supposed to have that out. It's at this point she realized that she fricked up. Some suppressed cackles came from around the office as some people nearby realized what was going on. Of course, being the well-adjusted person she immediately apologized and we both went about our day. Just kidding. She brought me in tow to the VP's office expecting me to be fired on the spot. As it turns out, VP is pretty cool and after hearing both sides of the story he cracked up at it. Boss lady did not find this as funny as he did, but he dismissed me back to my desk before reaming her out about wasting his time with this kind of stuff. Boss lady never did learn to like me, or anyone for that matter, but it ended up not mattering because that job sucked and I was only there for a few months. I had a somewhat similar problem at a place of work some years ago. I was written up for cell phone use during working hours. During the write-up, I showed the supervisor and the HR representative that the text I was responding to was in fact work-related, but the asshats wouldn't hear it. So, I informed them that I would no longer be available by cell to the company on or off the clock. This proved troublesome as I was the go-to guy for about 3 of the company's premier products. Over the next few weeks, the company lost some existing clients and failed to get a few new clients, if my buddy in sales is to be believed, because the subject matter expert for those things wasn't available in a timely fashion. When the supervisor and HR came back to me, failure to answer my phone, I referred them back to my write-up. Later in the conversation, they agreed that they were wrong about that. Over the next few weeks, I was able to leverage my recently discovered value into a promotion in title and pay. I ended up leaving the company about a year later, as stupid spot policies like this made other companies more attractive all the time. This should be its own post. It does raise an interesting point about requiring you to run authenticators on your personal device. Technically, they should be either providing authenticator hardware, paying for your phone, or paying you as a contractor so you can deduct your phone authenticator as a business expense. Agreed with this. My own employer uses such an authentication scheme, with verification codes being sent to smartphones. The phone which has the app to get the codes is also, and quite reasonably, locked down under their full mobile device management security, which means no installing unauthorized apps, monitoring of usage, all content on phone visible to IT, etc. As a result, the company provides us all with work phones, which show up locked down, with the authentication app already installed, and which get used for almost nothing else these days, since travel during the pandemic is all but nil. Awfully expensive dongles if you ask me. In our company, 10% of people have company mobile phones. Without consultation with IT, management rolled out two-factor authentication for Microsoft Office. You had to enable it to work with Office, or every time you skipped prompt it would ask every time you started Office program. When I pointed out that company will have to organize and pay for mobile phone for each Office user, policy was rescinded within 3 days. You know what's funny? I used to think having a work phone meant you were important, and now that I'm important enough to have one, I desperately wish I could get rid of it. I have to use an authenticator on my phone to sign into my work computer, and while they don't technically pay for my phone, they do pay $80 per month for my internet, which is like $35 in my cable bundle, so it evens out pretty well. See, now that I'd be okay with. At least there's some quid pro quo. Exactly. My last job wanted me to be available to them on my phone 24/7 for call-ins, use my phone's hotspot when necessary, and wanted me to be able to access company email on my phone at home. Part of the company policy, however, is that they can have access to any device that's accessing their information at any time they ask for it. I wasn't going to let them have access to my phone, and wasn't going to burn my data and battery power for their stuff. I held firm for nearly 2 years before they finally broke down and got me a company phone. I also held firm that none of my resources would be used for anything related to them, clear to the point where I wouldn't even charge their phone at my house. Petty? You bet your ass it was. As a note, I also made sure not to ever use their phone for my personal use either. It was pretty much a very fancy email machine that occasionally doubled as a Wi-Fi hotspot at work. Agreed. I pay for the phone I pay for my provider. Not only that, if there are technical issues with the app or the phone, the company should not be able to troubleshoot every random device. I work with some guys who don't even have a personal cell phone, or they still have just a basic feature phone, flip phone. My current company issues cell phones, though, so that's not an issue. Technically, you're right. However, if my company wanted to move to hardware, you think they'd really buy us work phones instead of just cheaping out and buying Kerberos keychains? I know some companies like banks and such have those hardware requirements, but it works out way better to just use your phone and not have to carry a bulky keychain or second work phone around. Why would you carry those around? Do you also carry your keyboard and monitor around? Those are work devices. You leave them at work. Lock them into a desk drawer or locker or whatever they provide you when you go home. Then get them out again the next morning and put them on the desk. Watch The Lockpicking Lawyer. Most locks on file cabinets and desks can be easily bypassed with little effort if you have the knowledge. That's not my problem. It's the employer's problem to keep his property safe enough, or carry sufficient insurance. What's next? The employees have to take turns driving the servers home for safekeeping overnight because the door to the server room has a lock that can be picked. Reminds me of this one time in biology class in high school. Our regular teacher told us she was going to be out tomorrow, so she was going to give us a worksheet for the sub. Now, the only problem was this worksheet required us to access her teacher webpage, and the only way we could do that was through the single laptop cart that was shared by the entire grade. When she found out she couldn't get the cart for the day, she decided that we should just use our phones. She left a note for the sub explaining that in order to do the worksheet we needed our phones. Well, the day with the sub came. She was the old school type who believed technology was the devil and had no place in a classroom. So she passed out the worksheet and then proceeded to confiscate every phone that was brought out. We tried to explain it to her, but she just kept asking why we couldn't do the worksheet. One kid even pointed out the note that the teacher had left. While they were explaining it, I swear you could see drool coming out of her mouth and smoke coming out her ears from the gears working too hard trying to comprehend how this information had anything to do with the worksheet. She ended up screaming at our whole class for about 10 minutes, then saying she was gonna leave a note for the teacher telling her how we were the spawn of Satan and how we needed to be punished for not doing the work. Teacher came back the next day and read the note thinking we all were causing a ruckus for absolutely no reason. Then we explained how she refused to let us do the worksheet and took our phones when we tried. She made absolutely no mention about our phones or how she wouldn't let us use them, just that we would not do the work even when told. We also mentioned the 10-minute rant. Guess who didn't have to do the worksheet anymore? Last I saw that teacher, she was subbing for the special needs class. One kid whose brother was in that class came back with horror stories about how she treated them. According to her, they shouldn't get special privileges for no reason, and she tried to correct their behavior when they obviously acted out. Never saw her again after that. Can't imagine why. Never understood that with MSPs. Worked at one where they made us lock them in a locker before entering the NOC/SD area. This forced all MFA to be sent via phone call, which was awful. Let alone the hypocrisy of executives bringing tours in and all of them taking phone calls. Security my ass. Where I work now, the company uses Microsoft 365 and has 2FA enabled. I set up the Microsoft Authenticator on my phone. I'm generally in within seconds. My office mates use the phone option despite them all having smartphones. It's better than it used to be. When we started using 2FA, all of them had the calls made to our office phone. It's a small office, so nothing fancy like extensions. This was real fun when the boss would try to authenticate from remote. Someone had to be in the office to press pound. My manager has received about 6 calls in a row to authenticate. I've never had that trouble with the app.